For the last decade, Loom became synonymous with work video. If you needed to record your screen, you didn't compare tools, you just used Loom. But while everyone was watching Loom, a much smaller company quietly started stealing their users. And all of this with just organic content and product-led storytelling that made Loom feel a little bit outdated.
So it's kind of a David and Goliath thing. I think they're so big, they've become a bit bloated maybe.
In this video, I'm breaking down how Tella, a tiny underdog, is beating Loom at its own game, and how SaaS founders can use the same playbook to win in markets they're not supposed to win. Because Loom didn't just win the market, it basically wrote the rules on it. Record a Loom became this thing people hardly even think about anymore. The problem is, that's exactly how we've gotten into this mess. Because when a tool becomes second nature, people stop questioning if it's any good. They just put up with it being a bit of a pain. They accept results that are just good enough, and they start doing the video thing in a way that's actually shaped by the product itself, which is completely messed up. Today, video recording is a drag. You hit record, you muck up a sentence, and since editing is such a chore, you just keep going. Then you send off this clunker of a thing, long and awkward and barely watchable. So teams end up recording less, founders avoid video altogether, just because it's easier that way. And creators burn out after just 3 lousy uploads. The whole category was optimized for one thing: how fast you can record it. Not so much for actually communicating effectively. Not how often you can use video in a way that makes sense, and definitely not for making the things you create actually worth watching. Which has left a giant hole in the market. A gap between, hey, I could probably do more video, and actually, I really want to record another one. And that's the weakness that Tella has none too subtly uncovered. Tella didn't try to do Loom 1 better by just fine-tuning what it already did. Instead, they challenged what it even means to do things better. Loom was about getting the recording out the door fast. Hit record, send link, next. Tella went for speed, but also optimizing for what happens after you hit that record button. And the thing is, the real problem never was getting that recording done to start with. The problem was all the stuff that happens around it.
I think that that's a huge focus of activation for me, because I can relate to someone signing up for Tella full excitement and kind of like blank page syndrome, where you just try to hit record and you realize, I don't know how to speak on camera. Like, I don't feel comfortable with this at all. So that's something that within the product, we try to make easy as well. Like, the product's whole, I think, worldview is that, well, first of all, having a screen share there should make it much easier and much lower barrier to even hit record, because we're used to doing screen shares over Zoom, for instance.
Tella's take on video was refreshingly simple. Get rid of the friction after you've recorded. And most of their features are basically optimized for that. For example, auto-cutting removes all the mistakes you make without forcing you to sit through some convoluted timeline. Studio Voice sorts out your audio without demanding a top-of-the-line mic. And layouts make your video actually watchable without needing to be some kind of editing wizard. They are the kind of features that make you think, I can actually do this again tomorrow. And that's the clincher. Every single feature launch is framed as a pain point people are already putting up with. Every post starts by acknowledging the frustration you're already feeling. And every demo feels like a helpful pointer, not some slick marketing ploy. They are selling you the idea that you can stay consistent, not a screen recorded for your job. And that's the reason that their content actually gets a reaction. Because it doesn't ask you to learn a new tool. It addresses the very reasons you decided to give up on video making in the first place. And here's a very interesting part. Tella didn't become a success by chasing viral posts. That's probably not in their cards, but instead, they build a system where content, products, and how you distribute them all work together like a well-oiled machine. It starts with who's creating that content. In Tella's case, the founders and team don't outsource the story. They tell it themselves, with Grant sharing insights about product decisions and trade-offs, and Louise teaching people how to make videos that people actually enjoy watching.
So the person I'm selling to is probably similar to myself, and I mean that just in terms of role and pain points, like nothing else, no demographics or anything. But essentially, I want to create a persona that feels super relatable. So someone that you feel you can get to know, like by proxy, almost like parasocially, and relate. And then throughout all of that, I do try to weave in how to use Tella, how to use the product, demonstrate how I personally use it.
Think visual hooks instead of talking heads, clear and simple layouts as opposed to clutter. And on top of that, high quality audio without breaking the bank on fancy equipment. You'll actually learn something useful from all of this. And at the same time, you'll get a better understanding of why Tella exists. That's the first of 4 pillars of Tella's content: founder and operator-led education. You're very aware of what your competition does. You do things differently. You have different features. You address things that are that still seem to be the pain points for your customers, even if they are switching from Loom or any other provider to you. I'm mostly curious about the feedback from the community about those posts. And have you seen people, after you posted something like that, switching from Loom to Tella because they thought something clicked in their heads and they thought, okay, this Tella thing is much more useful and much faster than what I'm usually doing?
I think the very first post I did was something to the effect of, good morning to everyone besides people who send me these connection requests or like to sell me something and then who still use Loom. And I just said that like super casually, and it did really well, that post, because people were intrigued as to what my issue or what my beef with Loom was. And so I thought this was very funny because it sounded like they were doing something wrong using Loom, which they're absolutely not. And then I was like, ooh, okay, classic case of like, this seems to really work. People seem to be feeling self-conscious about using a tool like Loom and maybe also have issues using it. So then I would just continue to do posts in a similar vein. For us, it's clear that like the bulk of users will be coming from Loom because it's still the biggest reference for screen recordings. And so it makes sense to do some messaging around that.
The second pillar is competitive switching content. So here's the thing. Tella doesn't run away from the competition. Instead, they lean right into it. This matters a lot because the way you win a category isn't by having the highest awareness. It's by beating the default choice of the category at the switching moment. And that means being ready to offer someone a better alternative when they decide they've had enough. So when someone gets to the point where they're looking for an alternative to Loom, Tella is right there for them. With a tool, with a guide, with a story about why switching to Tella is actually the easier choice. The third pillar is community as distribution. The January challenge is a great example of this. It's not just some boring old campaign, it's just structured onboarding that happens in the open.
Most people in January want to build new habits or build good habits. And one of those good habits being video marketing. So I thought to kind of multiply this activation that's already naturally happening, we should do some sort of a challenge or some sort of a thing that can help people.
You've got a fixed time window, weekly lessons, live sessions, and real output. People sign up and they actually participate. They record videos, they share their progress, and most importantly, they make a habit of using Tella. But there is another layer to the system that people might easily miss if they're just on the lookout for big influencer partnerships. Now, Tella doesn't go about things with flash-in-the-pan sponsorships or a big creator shouting them out. Instead, they just quietly drop the product into the creator ecosystem, letting it gain traction naturally.
Tella lends itself really well to YouTube. And we have a bunch of creators who are on YouTube producing videos that stay there forever and that generate basically traffic to Tella forever if their affiliate link is in their bio.
That's why you sometimes see Tella popping up in tool roundups, YouTube reviews, and creators' stack posts. Not as an ad, but as a genuine recommendation. This works because it's just how people naturally go about discovering new tools. Startup founders don't exactly set a lot of store by polished ads from established big players in the category. They trust what their peers have to say instead. I made the switch and now it just feels better, you know? Tella supports this by giving creators something that's actually worth sharing. A product that flies in demos, clear before and after moments, and resources that seamlessly integrate into the creator's own content. So, Instead of just throwing cash at trying to get people's attention, Tella earns that attention through the voices of credible creators in contexts where switching makes total sense. And then comes the next pillar, SEO as a perimeter. Tella builds pages around the jobs that people need to get done, not about the features of the product. Some people will come in through LinkedIn, some through YouTube, and some through Google. But the end result is the same. They understand the product without needing sales calls. All of this isn't content designed for attention. It's content designed to take someone one step closer to consistency. And consistency is what ultimately wins out in this category. So, how do you actually put this into practice if you're a SaaS founder? Here's a rough framework that I created out of it. First, identify the real friction loop. Not the problem your product is solving, but the actual path that makes people throw in the towel. For Tella, it was the whole process of record a video, mess it up, think about editing, and then give up on it altogether. Each category has one of these Achilles heels hidden in there. Find it, name it, and then build your content around it. Second, make features about confidence. Most products out there ship with a bunch of power features. Tella ships reassurance instead. So ask yourself, does this feature make users go faster, or does it give them the guts to try in the first place? Some of the content you create should show how your product helps reduce people's anxieties around getting their job done, rather than just listing out steps. And third, win when people say time for a change. Defaults aren't beaten by simply making people aware of other options. You beat them when people are at their most frustrated. Build some of your content around the moment someone types those magic words like alternative, migration, or better than. If you're not there to catch them when they're ready to make a switch, you're basically invisible. Fourth, make onboarding a public event. The Tella's January challenge worked because it gave people a push, a fixed start date, clear expectations, and a sense of shared progress. And you know, events, of course, create habits, and habits keep people around and make for a loyal customer base. Fifth, teach the principles your product makes so easy. Louise talks about visual hooks because that's what her users need to do well in Tella. Grant is talking about audio because that's where studio voice comes in. The content you create should explain why something matters and how you can make people's lives easier. The product itself should just quietly get out of the way and let people do what needs to get done. If you can teach people something over the space of weeks, buying from you feels like the most obvious next step. And that, in a nutshell, is the real lesson here. Tella couldn't possibly be louder than Loom. They just made switching to their product feel like a no-brainer. And that's exactly how small teams can win markets that are way out of their league. If you enjoyed this breakdown, I made a full video on how Breakcode, another quiet underdog, used organic content to beat category giants in CRM. Very different market, but a very similar playbook, and some incredible results. You'll find the link right here.